over a third of adults are overweight, with hundreds of millions living with severe obesity globally. For decades, medicine and society treated this population-scale crisis as a failure of personal discipline. Dysregulated metabolic feedback loops define severe obesity as a chronic biological disease. High-velocity chemical signaling dictates how the body stores and consumes energy. Treating a physiological failure requires moving past moral instruction toward direct chemical intervention. In a dysregulated system, patients experience food noise, a constant neurological preoccupation with eating driven by the hypothalamus. When a patient restricts calories, the body perceives the deficit as starvation and activates evolutionary defense mechanisms to protect its fat stores. This chart shows the typical trajectory of caloric restriction. The metabolic rate slows to conserve energy, while the gut increases hunger hormones. The body physically forces the weight back up. Conscious dietary discipline rarely outlasts millions of years of hardwired survival programming. The search for a metabolic override traces back to 20th century diabetes research and isolating insulin. Decades later, researchers isolated glucagon-like peptide 1, or GLP-1, an incretin hormone secreted by the intestines after nutrient ingestion. In its natural state, human GLP-1 degrades in minutes, making it useless as a therapeutic drug. By altering its molecular structure, pharmacologists engineered a synthetic version that survives in the bloodstream for up to a week. Medicine gained the ability to externally manipulate human satiety. These synthetic molecules, known as GLP-1 receptor agonists, mimic the natural hormone to initiate a highly synchronized metabolic response. In the pancreas, they stimulate insulin secretion to regulate blood sugar. In the stomach, they significantly delay gastric emptying, causing food to physically remain there longer. As this 3D model illustrates, the molecules simultaneously travel to the hypothalamus and brainstem. By binding to receptors in these neural satiety circuits, they chemically mute the signals driving the urge to eat. These medications do not burn fat directly. They engineer a state of sustained biological fullness to force a caloric deficit. Semaglutide, approved for obesity under the brand name Wegovy, emerged as the first highly effective synthetic GLP-1 optimized specifically for weight management. This chart plots the results of the landmark Step 1 clinical trial. Compared to the nearly flat trajectory of the placebo control group, the curve for patients taking semaglutide drops sharply, achieving a mean body weight reduction of 14.9% over 68 weeks. Semaglutide proved that pharmaceutical interventions could sustain double-digit weight loss across broad populations. The intervention escalated with Tirzepatide, marketed as Zepbound. It represented a structural evolution by targeting two separate gut hormone pathways simultaneously. Tirzepatide activates the GLP-1 receptor and a second gut hormone receptor called GIP. This dual action amplifies insulin sensitivity and deepens appetite suppression. This split-screen comparison visualizes data from SURMOUNT-5, the first definitive head-to-head clinical trial. Over 72 weeks, the semaglutide group lost 13.7% of their body weight. The Tirzepatide group reached 20.2%. By combining receptor targets, weekly pharmaceutical injections began producing outcomes previously seen only with invasive bariatric surgery. GLP-1s actively reduce epicardial fat inflammation and lower the risk of major cardiovascular events like heart attacks and strokes. Regulatory agencies have responded to the clinical data. Tirzepatide is now FDA approved as the first prescription medication for adults with moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea. Emerging evidence also links these peptide therapies to a reduced risk of chronic kidney disease progression, and researchers are currently mapping how they dampen the brain's dopamine reward pathways to potentially treat substance use disorders. By treating the root biological drivers of obesity, the drugs alleviate the mechanical and inflammatory strain on systemic human metabolic health. But the intervention exacts a physical toll. Patients frequently endure severe gastrointestinal distress, and the rapid reduction in mass often includes the loss of functional lean muscle. As detailed in this SURMOUNT trial summary, the rate of weight loss inevitably slows, and patients reach a hard metabolic plateau by week 72. Furthermore, if the weekly injections stop, evolutionary defense mechanisms reactivate, and the weight is regained. Obesity is a chronic relapsing disease. To maintain the biological state of fullness, these medications must be administered indefinitely. The requirement for lifelong therapy shifts the primary challenge from biology to economics. High out-of-pocket costs at the pharmacy divide patient outcomes by financial access. Supplying continuous weekly doses to tens of millions of patients places a massive structural strain on national health systems, insurance formularies, and pharmaceutical manufacturing capacities. The medical science has proven effective. The immediate barrier to ending the epidemic is now industrial scale and economic affordability. Meanwhile, the clinical pipeline is advancing. Researchers are testing Retatrutide, a molecule engineered to bind to 3 distinct targets simultaneously: GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon receptors. Early phase data indicates this triple-agonist approach yields even higher thresholds of weight loss. For over a century, medicine treated severe excess weight as an absence of willpower. Today, it is managed as a matter of engineered metabolic control.